to be here and present my topic on China's foreign direct investment in the extractive sector in Africa. And specifically, the question that I was dealing with in my research is whether China's foreign direct investment in Africa's oil sector is able to mitigate the resource scarcity and promote sustainable urbanization in Africa's oil-rich countries. So extractive FDI scholars that were studying the subject have identified that the countries that are dependent on the extraction of natural resources are suffering from the resource scarcity phenomenon. And the phenomenon suggests that the countries are developing slower in socioeconomic terms than their potential should suggest. And they have identified several reasons for this phenomenon. Sorry. Can you hear me at the back? Yeah. No. Okay. It's louder. Okay. So they're suffering from conflict. Often their government is mismanaging revenue, and they're suffering from the debt disease when the countries extract their resources, their local currency appreciates, and their domestic production becomes independent on the markets. So at the same time, they're also often suffering from the environmental degradation. So extractive FDI is linked with the urbanization, specifically a recent study by Bryce and McKenna, published in 2014, identified mineralized urbanization as a phenomenon that influences urban growth and settlement patterns. And there's two types of urbanization that I would like to draw your attention to, and it's an enclave development. So cities emerge with rapid resources, and once the cities emerge, they're dependent on the extraction of this resource, and once the resources run out, the cities often, as the name suggests, they become ghost towns. So this is very unsustainable, often type of development. The other one, which is more sustainable but highly unequal, is the consumption cities. And those cities emerge in Africa's oil-rich countries with the consumption that is happening with the help of the government investment and elite investment in the cities that are farther out from the places where the resources are extracted. So Chinese FDI in the oil sector has been increased since 1993 when China realized that they don't have enough oil to support their domestic needs, and China has become a net oil importer. And it has created the growth strategy with the help of its state-owned enterprises. They began investing abroad and supporting African oil-rich countries through this really interesting oil or resources farm infrastructure, which is often known as the Angola model. And that model combines the investment, the loans, and aid into the country, specifically directed for the development of infrastructure, which is really important, and we'll get back to that. So, and the process is institutionalized under the form of China-Africa Cooperation. It has been formed in the year 2000, and the districts that is accompanying that development is the South-South Cooperation or the Win-Win partnership, which are, as I would argue, influence Africa's urbanization. So in here we can see that Chinese FDI since 2004 and even before has been, in terms of stock, has been growing very rapidly. And in terms of the flow, it has been volatile as it was following global trends, but again, it seems to be growing. In here, Chinese FDI in Africa sector, and we're looking at the Africa's perspective. So we see that African oil exporting countries are experiencing rapid economic growth. Even if you just look at Angola, the economy has been growing at a very rapid pace in terms of gross domestic product. And African countries, as we heard a lot during these few days, have an enormous gap in the infrastructure around. And the study that I'm referring to identified a gap about $35 to $40 billion, which has to be covered. And often those loans that China is providing are able to help out covering the gap. So, and as we know, Africa has urban growth at 3.5%, which is about to accelerate up to 2050, and in 2030, around 50% of the cities will become more than 50% urban. So, and I want to present a case study of Angola. I've heard a lot in the last few days about Angola. So it has emerged from that civil conflict, civil war in 2002, and with the largest infrastructure gap that has to be alleviated with the help of the government and the interaction between the government and Chinese companies that are investing within the country. So Angolan exports are 90% dependent on the oil revenue, and Chinese FDI is one of the biggest, in the oil sector, is one of the biggest partners for Angola. And as I will present in the next few slides, influences economic, social, and environmental development. So economic impact, Chinese extractive FDI brings in important foreign direct investment and revenue that could be reinvested either to purchase goods from abroad or to build local infrastructure. So China as well supports the economic growth that we saw through the rise of the GDP. It was pretty rapid in case of Angola, and it has diversification. So China has contributed especially in the agriculture sector. It has brought in experts and teams and supported local initiatives to buy new equipment, to develop new techniques in irrigation, and so forth. And the inflow of money is also supporting the two types of cities that I was talking about, so both enclave and consumption cities. The social impact, I think, is the crucial to understand, and I want to spend more attention to it. So Angola model, as I identified earlier, is focused on infrastructure, but also brings in transfer of skills and jobs. So it has been main funding for the public sector in the program that has been initiated in 2004, and it's designed to improve healthcare, education, energy, water access, sanitation, as well as transportation. So China has either built new hospitals, new schools, or helped them to rebuild, and also brought experts that are helping to train new nurses, or brought in scholarships for the Angolan citizens to China. The transportation, it has been really important in rebuilding railways and building new railways that are helping to link Angola with its neighbors. And it has been a major partner in creating airport and roads, helping Angola's economy to grow through that. So it has also helped to bring in communication development, industrialization, public work, and cities, which I would like to focus more on. So the Chinese credit, as I would argue, linked to the organization, and as King would argue too. And so it's, if we look at Angola specifically, enclave development is happening around Cabinda province and consumption cities and urbanization, as often, if you look at Luanda, that would be most expensive city, which is developing with the help of this inflow foreign direct investment. And the key project that I wanted to focus on in this presentation is the My Dream My House project, and basically it was just that President of Santos promise to bring in 1 million state-funded housing units for the people to live in, and a few projects that were helped to build with the Angola model specifically are the Kilampa Cash, I think, and the other ones. But I will focus on Kilampa more because it was built with a Chinese loan related to the oil infrastructure production that I was talking about, and it has been constructed through the venture of Senegal with the help of China International Trust Investment Corporation, and it was designed to build 20,002 apartments in some hundreds of buildings. And not only that, it created a whole new city, but it also created shops, schools, churches, all of the infrastructure for the people to have it really close and compact. And it helped to provide the necessary treatment with the sanitation treatment plant, water purifier plant, electricity system, telecommunication system, traffic signals and roads, which is basically the construction of the whole new city with the help of this Angolan model loans. And that project has been completed in 2012, and it was criticized in the media for a while because it became a virtual ghost town because it was priced uncompetitively for the people to purchase. And so the government decided to do this, drop the price and create the rent-to-purchase scheme. And this rent-to-purchase scheme was also partly funded by the investment from China that Angola received that is tied to the oil deals. So, and one of the problems, and I think we've heard it a few times, is that it was directed for the middle classes, and the people that were living in the slums had to relocate farther on, and had to be brought farther away from the city and infrastructure that they were living before. Oops, sorry. So the environmental impact, and this is extractive industries are known to be not only China bringing in, but also Western companies, environmental degradation, which is problematic. And there is obviously pollution, and once the resources are extracted, we cannot extract them again because they're gone. So, and so government and corporations need to really put a strong environmental safeguards to protect resources, the city from the negative effects of the resource extraction. And the Chinese corporation has been evolving their corporate social responsibility strategy, but they have still work to do with the help of Angolan government and trying to get the regulations together. So sustainable urbanization, and I would like to use the definition presented by the UN Habitat in 2005. So it should encompass the issue of economic growth, which I think Chinese foreign direct investment has helped to stimulate. So we see GDP growth has been increasing in Angola. Social equity and poverty reduction. This is hard to trace to the Chinese oil deals, but I think it's an area worth of working on in terms of the investment culture and ethnic cohesion. There were a few complaints that the Chinese project might not have followed the cultural needs of Angolan citizens. And infrastructure provision is one of the areas I think that is the strong part of the Chinese corporation building on in terms of the Angola model. And environmental protection is, as I argued before, should be worked on and with the help of the government and the Chinese corporations to be brought together. So urban residents have better access to basic services, as we saw in the Calamba city. Those cities are created to bring the basic needs to the people and try to bring the whole city together in a more compact level. So FDI, one could argue that it promotes local infrastructure and capital accumulation, which may benefit African countries in the future. And it has capacity to make urbanization more sustainable in terms of economic and social terms. Yet local governments, as I will argue, is a key factor that can make this Chinese foreign direct investment in the oil sector better and more sustainable. So cooperation between the government and the Chinese corporation to make it a better package in a way for everybody, so everybody benefits, as the win-win agenda suggests. And the last slide is, so there is this tension between urbanization and the local population. So once we're building new cities, we should consider the people that we are resettling, how they're going to deal with the resettlement patterns. And the extractive sectors of the boom and bust cycle. So once we are early on in the phase when the resource prices are going, we're doing great, Angola is doing great, GDP is going up, investment is coming from Africa and from other, from China to Africa and from other countries into Western companies. The problem is when the commodity prices are slumping down, Angola and other oil exporting countries have to make sure that they have enough bases and they have invested enough in the urbanization and sustainable development before that happens. Because with the recent oil prices slowdown, Angola has suffered in terms of its budget, it has been undercut. And it had to negotiate new deals with China and get new support for the development of the country. So I feel that commodity exporting countries, especially in Africa, they should try to make connection between the good governance of the resources once the boom cycle ends and be ready for the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Anastasia Lincoln-Serra from Wilfrid Laurier University. And now our next speaker, yes, Professor Xingping Wang from Southeastern University. Okay?
It's my pleasure to do a brief introduction of these topics. You know, as the last speaker's report, in recent years, Chinese direct investment in Africa undergoing a faster increase. Behind this is strong support by Chinese government and some enterprises, especially from 2003, Chinese central government declared kinds of policies to support the Sino-African economic zones construction. You see, in 2006, the basic requirements and application procedures of overseas China economic and trade cooperation zones issued by Ministry of Finance. Most of these in the parts in Africa. And you see, our Chinese leaders, central government leaders, when they visit some overseas countries to sign some in industrial parks is a task for them. And although it's a new phenomenon, but scholars pay little attention about this phenomenon. Let's see. Most of the researchers care about effective factors on China's direct investment to Africa, or holistic study on Chinese overseas economic and trade cooperation zones and the Chinese economic and trade cooperation zones in Africa. And just in recent years, some scholars pay directly about the study of development zones co-built by China and Africa. And last year we published a book introduced the typical Sino-African industrial parks, but in Chinese, not English. So I'm sorry. So it's really a new phenomenon worth to study by Chinese overseas scholars. And as we know, Chinese development zones plays a key role in Chinese economic growth, both in industrialization and urbanization, especially in recent 30 years. Is it so? Let me see. Firstly, we see in national level. We could see this map. We could find some national strategies and policies. The policy goals were reached by national development zones, and the policy also pushed forward national development zones to develop. You see, from the beginning of Chinese opening and reform in 1984, 1984, we opened 14 coastal cities. Each city set up national development zones. And you see, after 1992, Deng Xiaoping trip to southern China, most development zones built in Chinese all over the Chinese mainland. Especially in 1994, China-Singapore Suzhou Industrial Park construct in this year. This park is really a very successful economic park. And behind this, more and more economic development zones built up in China and push forward the economic and industrialization. In city level, we see this is the city of Ningbo, a coastal city, Ningbo, and we see in the stage of 1992 to 2003, there is 78 development zones distributed in Ningbo districts. And after this year, 2003, in order to avoid the conflict of different development zones, we combine or interpret several industrial parks as well. So the amount decrease. And we see in different province, this is Jiangsu province. We can find that the GDP amount and the quantity of different zones is similar, the similar rules. More development zones, higher GDP in China. This is from the province, and this is the Jiangsu province. We can see the amount of development zones in Jiangsu is most one. From 7th 5-year plan to 11th 5-year plan, we can see the development policy. Many of the development policies is about build economic, technological development zones. So in province level, we also can see the development zones play a key role to push forward. And you see this map. This is the distribution densities of national and provincial development zones in different provinces, the coastal, the middle, and the east. Also, the distribution with the economic development level is similar. So we could see the development zones, the development zones with the economic development, the similar roles in China. And we also could see is there some opportunities for African countries to build development zones. From this map, we can see now African now undergoing a recovery and the new golden times from 1990s. From 1990s, it's similar as the Chinese in last century and middle of last century. And we see the industrialization stage and between China and Africa, we have some gap, but also have some similar. So it means if the development zones play a successful role in China, they also could play a successful role in Africa in the future, maybe. And we see the situation of Sino-African special economic zones now. Until 2014, there's 6 Sino-African economic and trade cooperation zones built up in Africa. You see, Zambia, China economic and trade cooperation zones, Egypt's Swiss economic and trade cooperation zones, and so on. This is the planned and constructed area. This is the enterprise investment in zone construction. And this is the enterprise number. Most of the enterprises is from China, but some also from Africa, built by African countries. The different Sino-African special economic zones has different operation models and the industrial development models. We can see this. The investment subject and the industrial function of Sino-African economic and trade cooperation zones. This is the Chinese local government who take part in this construction of the rings. This is industrial function of different. Some about the resource, but most of them not only resource. And this is the industrial development model, mainly divided into three kinds. Some about resources exploration, and some proceeding trade cooperation, and some is comprehensive. This is the how to attract the investment from China. You see, as a typical example of Egypt-Swiss economic and trade cooperation zones, they held many investment mostly meetings in China to lay a bridge to attract Chinese investment to Africa. And this is another cooperation zones in Zambia, from the mining to the production. So we can see actually more and more successful Sino-African industrial parks was built for the future. We can see our Chinese government leaders also give much support, more and more support for this area for cooperation, orientation cooperation. And in the future, maybe the Sino-African economic development zones could play a more important role in the future. This could serve as an hinge, a belt, and a key during the process of new pattern of globalization, and maybe also important to a new road of globalization and South-South cooperation. Also, maybe it's a chance to between two economic mainlands in Africa and Asia. And I just give, because my English is not very good, I just give you a brief introduction. And in recent years, I also supervise some African students to follow me to do some related research. So all of you are welcome to our university. We could give deep cooperation in this area.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes more if you want to compliment, or if anyone wants to make any question, please. Okay. So congratulations, Professor Xinjing Wang. Professor Jean-Marie Xiaohei from University of Ottawa. He will talk to us about Africa at Crossroads, controversy on China engagement in innovative and competitive cities.
Don't like to talk in the last minute because many presenters have talked a lot of things about China Africa. So they asked me not to repeat the same. I even don't know what to repeat. So because I don't know what you heard, I heard my colleague here just his name again, and the other one, they all talk about that thing. But I'm trying to take the problem maybe from our own point of view because I've been living in China myself for the last 25 years. Since 1987, I experienced the transforming of the whole country. It's not even a city. I was in Shanghai. I don't know, is someone from Shanghai here? this is an experience really believing in urbanization really from that time. So pollution, dusty, you remember when they destroy everything. So it means that we know what it means, okay? So I follow really the big trend in China. So the last almost 15 years I've been working with NGOs and United Nations projects, like basically on that area of China-Africa program. So now I'm going to say maybe some few of my views since we don't have too much time. So just to let you maybe share experience with something not clear, we could maybe check on a Q&A, okay? So I'm going to take you the context of China-Africa in brief, in what maybe is going on now. I'm going to tell you about the Chinese urbanization funding in Africa, because this is also very controversial in the way it's work on policy, in the way, again, it's negotiated, and the way it's really is feeling the people. I'm going to talk about investment attractions in the African cities, why in Africa, not other place, why they come to Africa, because a continent that was considered a long time ago, like no one can go there to do business. Why? So we have maybe a few elements to learn, some lessons to learn from that, and Iqbal's experience, and some few conclusions. So now, some keywords. Why we talk about crossroads? In my view, we talk about direction. Today, Africa is in a way we don't know what direction they are taking. Yes, there are plans, there are visions, but in general, many countries, there are few countries really going in a good rate. You can see them from the Global Competitiveness Report from the UN, but there are so many other countries, then we don't know, we go left to right, continue, we're going to adjust. This is why I said they're under crossroads, okay? And the innovation and the change on sustainability, because everybody looking at the long-term planning and see how you can really plan on a sustainable way, which means that it's abstract for some countries, because they have immediate needs now. They need the roads, they need the housing, they need the water, they need electricity. So what is 20 years after, 15 years, even 30 years after, few people maybe think it's not a concern for now generation, okay? So, which means that is a challenge that we have. So, competitiveness and capacity building. Africa is growing GDP last year was 4.3%, okay? And this year, this year is going to be almost like 5.7% according to African Development Bank. Means if you hear those billion and the growth, you might be aware about poverty coming, because it's poverty never declined, but it's still growing again, which is a contradiction again. That's what the controversy is talking about. Somewhere where investment are going and the growth is going means poverty is reducing again. So this is where the controversy I'm talking about. Now, this controversy on the Chinese engagement to Africa, those who know history about China-Africa, China has been to Africa even centuries ago. From the first explorer who came to Africa, I mean, there's touch for centuries. We have a different time of history where we are touched. It's not now, we are really close from a long time. So I understand those concerns and political connotation